I mean, obviously, the issue you got in the States, of course, you got so many different states with their own laws and their own rules in place, and none of them, they're all, you haven't got any consistency, have you, across the board, like you have in a European country. It's just one set of rules, but whereas in the US, of course, it's you've got all the state legislators
Yeah, the
and
state,
so
the
on.
state legislators, and then you've got different kind of, again, different rules, and then
Mm.
we have the problem here. I don't know how you guys do election judging and stuff over there, but election judges at the precinct levels here, these are mostly retired people, and I'm not dissing them, but a bunch of like older, elderly people who
Mm.
are, kind of basically wanting to get home after a long day of this, and they're, I mean, I am pretty well positive that you might have some kind of, devious stuff going on, which they notice that, but they're thinking, well, if we just kind of look the other way, we can wrap up here, we can go home. Or if we call this thing out, it's gonna, we're gonna be here all night, and then it will be kicked upstairs, and then, who knows what's going to happen. So a lot of the guys just in the whole idea of like, let's just avoid controversy. Something happened here, which is not according to the book. But
Mm.
if you didn't see it, I didn't see it, and I'm sure a lot of that does go on.
Are these precinct judges, are they partisan or are they independent?
They are. You see, the way it works is that at each of the polling stations, you're going to have, depending upon the size of the station itself, various areas are dealing with many more people and stuff, but you're going to have three Republican judges and three Democratic judges.
Yeah.
And again, and these guys are not, people who actually, I mean, if you declare that you're a Democrat or a Republican, they'll say, okay, well, we need three Republican judges at this, place. Are you a Republican? Yeah, I'm a Republican. Okay, well, then would you be a Republican judge?
Right.
And they watch each other, yes, but
So there is
the
balance, I suppose, in that regard.
yeah, it's a
Mm.
but see, they always need more judges, and in like the big cities, there aren't, there are never enough Republican judges, so they have to go ahead and borrow guys from here and there and stuff. And then in rural areas, where the Democrats are not popular, then they have the same thing where they got all kinds of guys who would be, nominally Republicans who would be acting as judges, but then they're like, well, we need to get three Democrats, and we need to
Mm.
find however we can find them and stuff. So it's kind of haphazard, and there it happens where on the election morning, somebody who's a Democrat supposed to be working one place will get a call saying, would you go like 30 miles to the west to this place? And if you say no, then they're not going to force you to do that. But if you say yes, and you'll go out there because they're short of judges and stuff. And these guys are paid, but they're not paid that much. I think for a full day, which starts at like 6 o'clock in the morning, goes till 7 o'clock at night, you're going to get about $75, about $75. So
Oh, right. So just minimal expenses then, by the sound of it.
yeah, right. And of course of course there is some training that you go through, but that's minimal. And they give you like, I think it's about $25 for a couple hours of training, but your
Right.
entire, take on this is $100 for, a very, very long election day. And then
Right.
about 2 to 2.5 hours of training before it, so it
Yeah.
is not, yeah, and they will say, "Oh, we've got these dedicated judges and these, highly professional, dedicated." Yeah, I mean, I don't give them. I'm not going to take that away from them. But this is not highly professional. It is basically slapdash and try to get through it.
I mean,
Yeah.
more broadly, I'll say, give me your view on this, but I find it perplexing that you have, across America, you have a judicial system which is partisan and an elected, uh, by voters. I mean, I just, you have Democrats and Republicans. I mean, in most other countries, including in Britain, the thought of judges belonging to a political party would, you know, it would
news and so forth.
it would actually it would cause an absolute uproar. Yeah, that you want to ideally you want a judicial system and judges to be above politics. You want them to be independent. That's what we've got. I mean, they work their way up through the profession, and they you know they get appointed, but they're not partisan. I mean, is this something that did this originate with the US with the drafting of the US Constitution? Does it go back to those days or um
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that again does perplex many foreign observers and stuff. The thing is that back the guys who drafted the Constitution, they were all you didn't have parties per se, but the parties actually in America they originated in Washington's first administration.
right.
Washington, Adams, Hamilton. Those guys were, they were what today they were advocates of, and I wouldn't call them big government because that's not what it was. But
Mm,
they wanted a stronger central government, and they wanted the states to be correspondingly kind of broken down in, their independence and that kind of thing. And then the other side of the coin, that was Jefferson and James Madison and
right.
James Monroe and those guys who wanted the states. They said that the U.S. government was a voluntary kind of a collection of the states who had given up their independence but wanted to maintain as much of that as possible. Whereas, the Federalists, that being Washington and Adams and those guys, said, no, this we have a central government now
Mm,
because we need one. And if in cases of different, like if there are kind of arguments between state law versus federal law. The federal law is supreme, and that was considered by Jefferson and his people to be like sacrilege.
mm,
But of course, the part and yeah, Washington in his farewell address to the people, he warned the country to beware of political parties. He said these
mm,
parties are, this is you're playing with fire here, and that the spirit of partisanship is going to basically trump the whole idea of good statecraft. In other words, the parties will be working against each other, and they will be, like again, one party wins an election, the other side immediately is going to start trying to go ahead and basically plant mines to have them blow themselves up so that they can win the next election.
hmm.
But how this all worked, and as a matter of fact, the first guy I know who actually talked about this, at least foreign observer, that is Alexis de Tocqueville in Democracy in America. And he had come over here to study. He came over here because his side lost in the election or the revolution of 1830 over there in France. And he
Right.
came over here to basically sort of, sit out until the heat was down. But he talked about that, and he said in America, there's no, aristocracy here per se. We have no titled class or anything. He said,
Mm,
but in America, the class that would basically, kind of substitute for a class of nobility would be the legalists. He said you find that in the bench and the bar in America. And he does say that, or did say, I should say, that in America, every political question eventually will become a judicial question. In other words, so many lawyers basically knowing how to twist things and
right.
how to turn things and whatnot. They can take a case where a guy loses an election that means nothing, and they can say, but this is so important. and
No.
people will believe it.
I
Yeah,
think I
they're
can see where you're going with this. So all of this, it's a process of evolution, and one layer on top of another to constantly correct the drawbacks of what you've done previously, and you're having to constantly go through this process to just to keep the thing the wheels turning.
Yeah, it's the whole
Yes.
idea of like, your bureaucracy is a problem, therefore
Mm,
we will go ahead and have another layer of
yeah.
bureaucracy to, observe the doings of the first layer, which was the problem to begin with, you know.
This
So
is why you have sprawling government, isn't it? Government tends to get bigger over time,
yeah.
and it takes more power and never gives it back because there's always a reason, or we have to do something else to correct, and so you go on. Uh,
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
and that is how really so many of the, like as you say, the idea of a non, or a nonpartisan judiciary or whatever. You know, here in Missouri, as far as well, we do have elections for circuit judges. That's, like every state does that. You know, but
Mm,
if you are going to be appointed to a state judgeship above that electoral level, we do have what's called the Missouri Plan, where they will, like, I don't know, I would say each party will do this, but they will draw up a list of judges who have been universally kind of praised, for their performance. And then the governor, whoever the governor is, will generally select one of those people. And again, if it's somebody who is like rapidly, Republican, the Democrats won't want them, or somebody who's radically Democrat, the Republicans won't want them. That
mm,
means that you're generally going to get people who are not, I mean, who put the law above party considerations. I mean, it's not perfect, but that has, again, it's called the Missouri Plan. And a
yeah.
lot of the states have adopted that now, saying, well, it works pretty well over there. And again, you don't want somebody on the bench who would stand up there and say, okay, I am a Democrat and I don't care about the law. To make sure that all of, people who are Democrats who appear in my court will, walk away with nothing more than a slap on the wrist or something like that. Yeah,
Right.
obviously, and you cannot have that. So, but it is, and that's part of the whole spirit of partisanship, is that some of these
Mm,
judicial positions, if you are a practicing attorney and a good one, you're going to earn a lot more money in private practice than you will as a judge. But a lot of guys, a lot of people who want to be judges are guys who are kind of putting, like the cherry on the top of their careers. And the money that you will earn as a judge is not bad. I mean, it's not as much as you're going to get if you're a high powered, kind of a defense attorney or, like divorce attorney or whatever, but it's not bad by any means. You're looking
mm,
at the $100,000 plus range.
right.
And, anybody who says that, anybody who basically sneers at that saying, well, that's not enough money for me. Well, yeah, I'll take it if you don't want that,